All right, so this is Josiah's checklist that he drew all over, lovely hearts. But this is what we work off of each day, and I help him to work through all the things that he needs to accomplish for Ambleside Online. And so far this morning, he has done Spanish, and he has done... You haven't done Spanish? I thought you already did. I saw you over there. He worked on piano, I know for sure. So piano is on there on the list, and he will need to check that off. And then they kind of took a snack break this morning, had some oatmeal, and we are right now getting ready to read the Burgess Bird Book, which I have printed right there. We read it yesterday and stopped, because we read it in small chunks and work on narration. So this is year 1, Josiah. There he is. Wave. Hi.
Hi.
So we're reading the Burgess Bird Book, and we're going to continue where we left off yesterday. This is a choose a chapter one. So I let him choose. He chose, it's actually I think the last chapter in the book, called Peter Sees Two Terrible Feathered Hunters. And we read yesterday about some of the dangers that Peter Rabbit faced during the winter time. And can you remember from yesterday and tell about some of the dangers that he faced? You talk to me about that?
I don't think so.
Well, I do remember that he was very concerned about the goshawk. Remember Terror the goshawk?
Yes.
What can you tell me about Terror the goshawk? Tell a little bit about why he was a danger for Peter Rabbit.
I don't know.
Don't know? Okay, well, I will recall that part to get us started today, but I do expect that you have good listening and attention today while I read, and that you're able to narrate back to me the best that you can, okay? So I remember from yesterday that Peter Rabbit, he was afraid of Terror the goshawk because Terror the goshawk was super hungry. It was wintertime, so food wasn't as plentiful, and so he needed to eat. Terror the goshawk needed to eat, and so he wanted to eat Peter Rabbit. And I remember the part where Peter Rabbit had to hide in a hollow of a log, and Terror the goshawk stood outside there waiting for Peter Rabbit, but eventually got impatient and went away. And that's kind of where we left off. So we're going to read the next part, okay? All right, I want you to sit up, please, and stop minding the camera so much. And let's focus on listening and narrating. Okay, yes, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, sit up, please. Thank you. It helps if you have a good posture when you're listening, sometimes it helps to remember what you're hearing. All that day, Peter remained hidden in that hollow log. He did not dare put foot outside until the black shadows began to creep through the green forest. Then he knew that there was nothing more to fear from Terror the goshawk, for he hunts only by day. Once more, Peter's thoughts were chiefly of his stomach, for it was very, very empty. All right, what's going on?
There was only one put a foot outside of the log
And what else? Do you remember anything else from what I just read in that paragraph? No? All right, well, I'm going to keep reading. Let's see if we can remember a little bit more this time. But it was not intended that Peter should fill his stomach at once. He had gone but a little way when from just ahead of him the silence of the early evening was broken by a terrifying sound. Woo-hoo-hoo! Woo-hoo! It was so sudden, and there was in it such a note of fierceness, that Peter had all he could do to keep from jumping and running for dear life. But he knew that voice, and he knew, too, that safety lay in keeping perfectly still. So with his heart thumping madly, as when he had escaped from terror that morning, Peter sat as still as if he could not move. Okay. Tell me a little bit about what's happening here. I can tell that he's a little bit afraid. Can you tell about the part where he's afraid?
He heard like this woo woo, and he knew that voice, and all he could do was stay still.
It was the hunting call of Hooty the Great Horned Owl. And it had been intended to frighten someone into jumping and running, or at least into moving ever so little. Peter knew all about that trick of Hooty's. He knew that in all the Green Forest there are no ears so wonderful as those of Hooty the Owl, and that the instant he had uttered that fierce hunting call, he had strained those wonderful ears to catch the faintest sound which some startled little sleeper of the night might make. The rustle of a leaf would be enough to bring Hooty to the spot on his great silent wings, and then his fierce yellow eyes, which are made for seeing in the dusk, would find the victim. From that paragraph, can you tell me a little bit about Hooty the Owl?
He could see through the dust with his eyes, and he could hear very well.
So, Peter sat still, fearful that the very thumping of his heart might reach those wonderful ears. Again that terrible hunting cry rang out, and again Peter had all he could do to keep from jumping. But he didn't jump, and a few minutes later, as he sat staring at a certain tall, dead stub of a tree, wondering just where Hooty was, the top of that stub seemed to break off, and a great broad-winged bird flew away soundlessly like a drifting shadow. It was Hooty himself, sitting perfectly straight on the top of that tall, dead stub he had seemed a part of it. Peter waited some time before he ventured to move. Finally, he heard Hooty's hunting call in a distant part of the Green Forest, and knew that it was safe for him to once more think of his empty stomach. So tell about his encounter, Peter's encounter with Hooty the Owl. Let's try this. What do you remember about what I just read? Even if it's just a snippet, any little detail that you remember. Hmm?
So hard to
That one was a little harder for you to. Is your attention waning? No. Well, let's stop there today. I can't read any more because I think your attention is all done. Guess we'll have to find out the next day what happens.
What happens is the question.